एवरीथिंग
आपके सामने तुक्का मारे मतलब
मैम यूनिटी
इंडेक्स हैवीवेट्स में आपके सामने जो बढ़िया मूव आता हुआ दिख रहा है वो है हिंदुस्तान
तुक्का अलग होता है।
आपके सामने रिलायंस इंडस्ट्रीज
तुक्का अलग
दिख
होता
रहा है।
But the question was very nice.
आधा प्रतिशत की
Means,
वृद्धि और
one or
एक्सपोर्ट
two problem was already done in class. Exactly. वो end वाला जो
कहां
था
पर मामूली सी
वो भी end into
वो रिटर्न वाला क्यों आ गया है?
बीपीसीएल में देख रहे हैं
रिटर्न वाला क्यों आ गया है? अच्छा वो नहीं, अच्छा वो कुछ नहीं होगा। अच्छा वो कुछ नहीं, अभी वेट करो, मार्क्स आएगा बाद में।
वीरेन जी ये सूरत
Okay, now module 3.
ने एफएनओ में क्या पकड़ा?
देखिए इस वक्त शैल जी
इसके बाद सेकंड क्विज होगा, सेकंड क्विज की तैयारी करना।
नो डाउट, लेकिन यार
So module 3 is a function of several variables.
सेकंड क्विज कब तक हम लोग एक्सपेक्ट कर सकते हैं?
I cannot say.
टर्बुलेंस रहेगी। बैंक निफ्टी में अच्छी बात क्या है कि बैंक निफ्टी ने कल के हाई को रिस्पेक्ट किया और वहां से अगर आप देखें पुल बैक लेने की कोशिश कर रहा है।
In this you will study limits, continuity,
वोलेटिलिटी के लिए
and there are other things also. So let us move to the limit. अच्छा, limit you have studied in your high secondary, isn't it? For the function of one variable.
आईसीआईसीआई बैंक का स्ट्रांग होना, स्टेबल होना, दैट्स गुड। याद रखिएगा अपने पिछले 15 सेशन की फॉलोइंग चैनल से
पढ़े हो ना लिमिट 11 12 में तो पढ़े हो
एनबीएफसीज में चोला फाइनेंस
कोई भी पूरा इन एनी
और नवीन फ्लोरिंग
Okay, there is no
देने वाला स्टॉक।
हाँ बताएंगे, there is no problem. And the one who knows, can you tell me anything? Just a brief about limit
10-day exponential
for one variable, because the concept is same, but the number of variable is changing. That means dimension is
और साथ ही
increasing.
साथ अगर आप देखें एफएसएल, ये कुछ ऐसे स्टॉक्स हैं जो अच्छा कर रहे हैं।
Okay.
लेकिन फुट पे क्या है?
So we say suppose you have a function, there is some function
कमेंट्री के बाद
in one variable x was given along the x-axis. That means we were considering the limit only in real line along x-axis. So we will say that limit x tending to a f of x. This will exist. Means this is some limiting value, say L. This is actually the standard notation. People generally define it as L as a limit. So to test whether the limit is existing or not, what we check for one variable, this is suppose a, it is not exactly equal to it. It is not x equal to a. That means x is closer to a. So in order to check limit is existing, we move in positive as well as negative direction. If the left hand limit as well as right hand limits are same, then we will say that the limit is existing. Otherwise, only when left hand limit, like if this is a right hand limit, limit extending to a plus, if the limit exists, then if the value of this limit is finite, if we are having a finite value, then we say that the limit exists. Limit exists only when it is in the positive right hand side limit exists.
जिस हिसाब से स्ट्रक्चर है
We cannot say that overall limit will exist. Okay. Now, if we move in the negative direction, limit extending to a minus.
जो स्टॉप लॉस मेंटेन करना है वो है 4000
fx. Remember, this is not exactly equal to it; it is approaching it. If this also has a finite value, then we say that the left hand limit will exist. Now, if the left hand limit as well as the right hand limits, they are both equal value, then we will say limit
800 के ऊपर चलेगा तो यहाँ पे ब्रेकआउट
limit exists.
तो 808 पे ही
Okay, from this we get the concept of continuity.
इंट्राडे का ट्रेड भी बनता है तो 808 पे आप बाय करें आपका
Okay, can anybody say about the continuity? Just a simple graph. Just I'll give you one simple graph.
रहेगा जैसे कि मैंने कहा।
So is this graph a continuous graph?
840 for the day.
ओके तो 840 का टारगेट।
Okay, now this is a continuous graph.
मौका दिख रहा है, तेजी करके चले। गावा साहब ने भी कुछ ट्रेड्स निकाले हैं।
Why?
बताइए इस समय कहां पर है, क्या पिक कर रहे हैं?
Because y is not defined at a point.
Yes, there is a break in the middle. Yes, there is a break in the middle. Yes, it is not defined at a point. That means if you are moving, if you have this value and you take this value, you will see there is a difference in the value, a small difference. That is called actually the jump.
बहुत अच्छा मोमेंटम है,
jump discontinuity, and so if this value at the point
बैंक ने क्या किया?
where we are checking, if limiting value of this okay, let me first explain limit exists. So limit will exist when limit x tending to a into f of x exists.
वो है बैंक निफ्टी।
So limit exists means the left hand limit as well as right hand limit both are existing and they are giving a same value. यानी कि exist मतलब it should have a finite value. Infinity आएगा तो it doesn't exist. Okay, the left hand limiting or right hand limit doesn't exist. So if this limiting value will be equal to function value at this point, the point where we are checking the limit, that is equal to fa. So if that is equal to fa, then we say that the function is continuous. Just like this graph, like some of you have said the answer. So this is the thing.
18,000 क्रॉस करने की पूरी
Now if we move to two dimension,
17,200 के ऊपर जैसे वीरू जी कह रहे थे, आई थिंक
that is there are two variables.
के लिए और तेजी में
This is not in your syllabus. I
मैं
just
कॉल
gave
में
you
चाहूंगा जरा एक बार
the
प्लीज
basic.
आईसीआईसीआई बैंक की
So if we have a 2 point, where x is tending to a and b,
बोल सकते हैं आप बताइए
they are in the x and y domain, in the x and y axis.
तो देखिए
So in one variable, what we were doing, we were approaching along only one axis
820 की कॉल
because there were no other variable. एक ही dimension है. There is only x axis in which we are checking. But when there are two variables involved, that means you have a
820
higher agent. That means you can move along the x axis, x y axis, negative x y axis, or both positive axis. So there are 4 quadrants involved over here. All positive, one positive, negative, both negative, and so on. So you have infinite number of ways in which you can
कैश में
approach the value
करता हुआ दिख
A
रहा
and B.
हूँ। आशीष जी की टीम में शिपिंग कॉर्पोरेशन था, ये गैप अप ओपनिंग हुई है, ध्यान दीजिए यहाँ पर अनेक
Okay, now can anybody guess out from here by the concept of one dimension?
137% बढ़ा था, 312।
Just one minute.
इसको स्क्रीन पर ले
हाँ,
आइए
hello?
और देखिए क्या ताबड़तोड़ मोमेंटम है,
Hello?
आपको 134-45 के आसपास ट्रेड करता
हाँ,
हुआ
अच्छा
दिख
बाद में कॉल करना
जोड़ते
तो
हैं
क्लास
राजेश
चल रही है,
पांड्या
ठीक
साहब
है?
को। राजेश जी क्या कीजिएगा एससीआई के साथ?
1 घंटा बाद मतलब 12:50 में खत्म होगी।
मोमेंटम तो बना है स्टॉक्स में, और जिस तरीके से एससीआई में अब यहाँ पे गैप अप ओपनिंग के बाद एक बाइंग इंटरेस्ट बनते हुए दिख रहा है, हमें लगता है यहाँ पे 120 का स्टॉप लॉस रखें। स्टॉक में जो मोमेंटम बना
So over here you can either move along the negative x-axis,
तो 127
positive x-axis. You can move along negative y-axis, positive y-axis. So you can move along this axis. You can move along this axis when y is equal to x. This is a line. It should be 45 degree. Diagram ठीक नहीं बना है. So these angles are same. So this is y equal to x. You can move in this way. You can take any curve. ये नहीं कि सीधा लाइन से आना है. It can be any curve. Curve होगा तो क्या होगा? डिग्री बढ़ जाएगा. x square हो जाएगा या x cube हो जाएगा. कुछ भी हो जाएगा. If it is a line, then it will be degree y is equal to x. Then okay, it can be or mx. If y is equal to
तो देखिए
mx,
650 के
then this it is a line, but the slope of the line is changing.
हमारे साथ
Okay, we can move or we can take y is equal to mx square. It is a curve.
रचना जी
Anyway, you can come.
कि आपने एक
You can come in this way. You can come in this way.
चुन लिया है,
This
लेकिन
way.
पहले
This way. Anyway, so you have an infinite way in which you can move to the point. This. But the problem over here in one dimension it is easy, but in two dimension it is very difficult. So how can you check which point is actually, how many times you can check so that you get a finite value? So if we take a number like if x tending to 2, y tending to 4 or any value from any value, then it becomes difficult to find from where it is moving. Or if we take y is equal to 2x, y is equal to 9x, or x is equal to 5y. So this becomes difficult. So what we generally do is to check the limit, we take an arbitrary value m which is defined as a slope along which it is moving. So either we can take y is equal to mx, y is equal to mx square, or x is equal to my cube. So this curve, this is actually a curve which we can say. This curve we have to choose in a very careful manner, because just looking at the problem, it is sometimes it is easy. Like we have to always check out in the contradiction way. Like we have to choose a curve that will actually try to because if we directly move to the curve and prove that the limit exists, then it becomes means the answer will not always be an exact answer that you are getting. Okay, so try to always move on to the contradiction that there may exist some curve where the limit will not exist. And if you get such curve, then it is fine. The limit, that means limit will not exist means what? It should be a function of m. Like whenever you are taking any limit, like limit x tending to my, that means this is becoming the function of one variable. You have limit s x tending to some value, y tending to some value, like a and b. Like if you take this as x tending to my, then this becomes a function of only one variable.
1990 से लेके 2000
समझ में आ रहा है? अगर x y फंक्शन है हमारा, कोई भी फंक्शन डिफाइंड है जिसका लिमिट निकालना है, when you are taking x tending to my, that means you are approaching x along the curve my. Then this becomes a function of one variable. यहाँ पे y की जगह में m डाल देना, x की जगह में my डाल देना. So this becomes a function of y only.
शायद बजट के उसके बाद
okay, when this becomes a function of y and you then simplify the term and take the limit, if you see that this depends on m only, depending on m means m is arbitrary, it can take any value, 1, 2, 10, 100, 20, half, any value. So if this becomes a function of m only, then we can say that the limit will not exist.
मेरा समझना है कि कंसोलिडेशन के बाद
ठीक है. In this concept, when we were taking a one variable, we were defining limit extending to a plus fx dx, limit extending to a into fx. If it has a finite value, then we can say that the limit will exist provided left and right hand limit are the same. And over here, what we will do? We will take limit extending to a.
LNT निकलता हुआ है, LNT गजब निकला, वो कॉल हो गई है 57 रुपए की. बताइए कोई कैश का स्टॉक या कोई इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर
f of x, y
कंस्ट्रक्शन कंपनी कोई एक लेनी हो तो
LNT
is equal to some L value. So if we get a finite value and if we take any value of x and y, that means if we are moving along any curve and if we get a finite value, then we will say that the limit will exist. Okay, this we can explain by epsilon delta also.
बैंक निफ्टी है.
Now let us move back to one variable. When we are taking the epsilon delta concept, then we can say,
और
किसी को पता है एप्सिलॉन डेल्टा लेके हम लोग जो करते हैं?
370 अंक बचे हैं उस
Suppose this is a point A.
के ऑर्डर के लिए चॉइस आपकी है.
This is the value of the function at f and there is some x on it. When x is approaching a, okay, and this
Can you repeat the part? Can you repeat the part where how we check that limit exists when limit we check x equals to a y?
DI पर एक्सिस बैंक DI पर, और ये चीज राजेश पालवे जी नहीं बोलेंगे.
अब ये limit will exist when it is a two variable. If we move along any path, like this is a path, if we can move along any path and we say that the value is unique, only one value that you are getting, then we will say limit will exist. I will explain further when I give you an example. Then in that there also I will explain. This was just a
this part where limit x equals to a and y equals to b equals to x. This part.
No, this a and b are arbitrary values.
24 to 25 का.
स्क्रीन पे एक्सिस बैंक.
Like see, if you are taking that, suppose we are moving along this a and b. Okay, so this is a point.
चतुर्मोता के पास चलते क्योंकि
and the limit will exist at this point. That means x is approaching this value.
रह गया है आशीष.
X is approaching a and over here y is approaching
पर भी
b.
व्यू दे दीजिए.
So for x and y to approach a and b, you will see in the figure itself. You see there are various ways in which you can move. You can either approach x in this way, you can approach y in this way, or you can approach x in this way. Again, y you can choose it this way. So in whichever way we are moving, and we say that whenever x is approaching in whichever path that we are choosing, if the value is same, if the value is unique, then we will say that the limit will exist. Okay, let us then one example.
Ma'am,
Yes.
one doubt means if we have to check for the limit like at a and b, then we have to choose a particular function like you said y equal to
Yes,
mx.
yes.
So it satisfies a and b, and then if we calculate the limit, if it comes as a function of m, then we will say limit does not exist, and if it comes as a constant, then we'll say limit exists.
Yes, yes, you are right. If it is a function of m, if you are taking the limit and then replacing the variable, any one of the variable as a function of one variable, then some term will cancel. Okay, let us take one example.
50 के आसपास, लेकिन
It will
टारगेट
be
होंगे
easy.
16,300 तक के. और साथ में बजाज फाइनेंस
You
को
have
देखा जा सकता है, वो स्टॉक में भी एक अच्छी रिकवरी बन रही है.
FXY
7,100 के आसपास ऑलमोस्ट फ्यूचर ट्रेड कर रहे हैं, और हमें लगता है ये स्टॉक भी यहाँ से 7,000
and always try to move with the contradiction.
जाने के लिए बिल्कुल रेडी है. तो ये स्टॉक को बाय करें 7,030 के स्टॉप लॉस से.
So you are having this value.
दोनों पर ही नजरें, और फाइनेंशियल्स ऑफ कोर्स फॉर फ्रंट पर हम
Okay, now we have to check whether the limit is existing or not.
नहीं चाहिए. और कल ही
So if we take different values of x and y, like
जोश में तो है ही काउंट. अमित सेठ भी तैयार है अपने ट्रेड्स को लेकर. अमित बताइए, निफ्टी बैंक इस समय अब 600.2 पर, तो क्या बैंकिंग काउंटर्स पर ही दिलाया है?
now if we replace different values of x and y, then it will be difficult to take. So we can take any curve, like you can recall this explanation. So if you take
HDFC बैंक में हम देखेंगे तो एक फॉलोइंग ट्रेंड लाइन का ब्रेकआउट हो रहा है.
y is equal to mx, that means we are approaching
1505 का स्टॉप लॉस रखूंगा 1490 का, और मेरा
origin along the line y is equal to mx.
ये राय
So this is the origin.
आती हुई दिख रही है. फिलहाल बजाज
0
पर
so we have to approach origin along any path. Okay, the path should be unique. If we approach it along the line y is equal to mx, then what will happen over here?
IRB इंफ्रा देखिए 260 को पार करता
So y will be replaced with mx value. So you will have limit extending to 0
करता हुआ दिखता है
and y is
डैम्स का, वो है NCC. डायरेक्टर साहब लेके आइए स्क्रीन
Okay,
पर
y
77 रुपए 45 पैसे
will be
और
equal
अगर
to
आप
mx
वॉल्यूम देखें
because
तो ये काउंटर
this
अभी
becomes a
18.5
function of
लाख
one
शेयर
variable. So
ट्रेड कर
you did
चुका
not
है।
write y tending to 0.
मयूरेश जी आप कुछ
Okay.
टिप्पणी एनसीसी पर करना चाहेंगे?
Because x is tending to 0 and this y is depending on mx, so obviously this becomes x tending to 0. When x is tending to 0, then obviously y will be tending to 0. So now this becomes a function of one variable. So you will have
सुधार देखने मिलेगा
this fxy will become mx.
प्ले आउट वेरी इफेक्टिवली और
This
ऑर्डर फ्लो
fxy.
जैसे आते रहेंगे मुझे लगता है रेवेन्यू विजिबिलिटी बढ़ती जाएगी तो
Are you
सारे
getting
factors
it?
मुझे लगता है
No, ma'am. Can you explain one again?
25 पैसे आपके सामने वीरेन जी
Okay,
इसके सामने
just you try to choose any path through which you will move to
यहाँ पर
the
एक
origin.
टेक्निकल व्यू ले लेते हैं
Through the point
मानस
at which
जायसवाल
you have
साहब
to
से।
check whether the
मानस जी,
limit
आप
will
कुछ
exist or
टिप्पणी
not.
एनसीसी पर
You
करना
have to just
चाहेंगे?
choose a path.
देखिए बेहतरीन स्टॉक
Path means it can be any curve,
क्योंकि यहाँ पर
any line, like this over here we are taking it as a line, y is equal to mx, where the slope is changing. So okay, when we replace this value, yes, any path, but try to choose in a contradiction way. Like if you choose a path at one time and you say that the limit it is not depending on m, and then you directly say that the limit exists, then there may be another path at which it is failing. So try to choose a contradiction first. So away I am taking a value away, y is equal to mx plus c. Away this becomes mx. This is x squared and m square x. Now what is the value of this? This is a function of one variable, so it will be limit x tending to 0. There will be no limit y tending to 0. So what is the value of this?
वीडियो पसंद आ रही है ना, लाइक जरूर कर दो यार, भूल जाते हो लाइक करना। और यहाँ पे प्लेटफॉर्म पे ज्यादा बर्फ नहीं है, देख लो ना, थोड़ी थोड़ी बर्फ
Do it carefully.
है और बर्फ से खेलने का
What will be the final limit?
एकदम ठोस है भाई,
हाँ, zero आएगा। 1 कैसे आएगा? यहाँ पे x cube है, यहाँ पे x squared है, so this is becoming 0. So can you say that the limit is existing for this situation?
No, ma'am. Yes.
Why? It is existing because you're having a finite value.
Yes,
okay, but this is but this is not the answer. Now, if you take another path, like suppose you take the value y is equal to mx square, then you check out. So limit x tending to 0 when y is equal to mx square, and this is function of x. This becomes limit x tending to 0. Now you put the value.
m by root over m by 1 plus m
आ चुके हैं अपन लोग अपनी डेस्टिनेशन श्रीनगर, और आज इस ट्रेन में हम श्रीनगर तक ही ट्रेवल कर रहे थे। वैसे ये ट्रेन ना बनिहाल से बारामूला के बीच चलती है।
So sometimes directly you don't put the limit. I think you know that directly we don't put, we first simplify and then put the limit. So when you simplify it, then you get 1 by 1 plus m square. So this is depending on m. So this is a function of m. That means for different values of m, you will get different limit value. So what we can say over here that the limit will not exist.
इतना खूबसूरत ये जर्नी थी, पूरी स्नो, ऐसा लग ही नहीं रहा था भाई इंडिया में ट्रैवल कर रहे हैं, ऐसा लग रहा था कहीं बाहर ही ट्रैवल कर रहे हैं।
Okay, so this is actually a difficult task to choose such a path at which the limit will not exist. It is really a difficult task. But there will be some problem which will be given to you that looking at the problem you can do. Means you will be given a simple problem. If the problem becomes very complicated, then choosing a path becomes difficult.
Ma'am,
so one thing that you can...
Ma'am, there is a question. In some cases, can we use L'Hopital rule in just in case?
Yeah, you can use. If you are yes, L'Hopital rule. If you are difficult to directly get the value, if the terms are not cancelling, then you can use LH rule and then simplify and then put the value.
Ma'am,
that rule is actually yes.
Why does the limit not exist if the limit comes out to be a function of m?
Because m is arbitrary, no? M is any, it is a variable which can take any value. M is actually a slope. Inclination along the axis at which it is moving. Like when we can take m, y is equal to this. Okay, you draw the graph now. When I tell you m is equal to 1, what is the graph? For y is equal to mx. So this will be the line?
Yes, ma'am.
If I give you when m is half, then what is the line? It will be below y equal to x, yes, or it will be above y equal to x?
It will be below because the slope is decreasing.
Yes. So this is this. And if I give you y is equal to 2x, so where is the line?
So it is above.
So it will be this way. So what you can say from this, you can say that when m is changing, you are approaching the point 0, 0 from different direction.
Ma'am, but that function will be constant now, like in single variable case.
No, why it will be a constant? See, this example, just match this what I have said. Because when m is changing, you are getting different line through which you are approaching. And when you are approaching along this line, you are saying that you are getting a different value of limit. When you are approaching along this line, you are getting different value of limit. So the thing is that the limit should be unique. In whichever direction you move, you should have only one value of limit for it to exist.
So if ma'am, it would have been a constant other than 0, will the limit exist?
Yeah, in that way also you have to choose a different curve. In that case also you have to choose a different curve.
So
the main thing is that
we have
to choose. Yes.
We have to get 0 so that the limit exists. In this case, if in second whatever we take, whatever answer come, it has to be 0 so that the limit exists.
Yeah, it should have a same value for which the limit. That means it should be independent of m.
Yes. Yes.
If you can find such a function which is independent of m, then we can say that the limit is existing. This is actually a simplest shortcut method by taking a curve and then making it taking that curve inclined at an angle m. So this is actually a generalized form of checking the limit. Otherwise, if you keep on changing m, then the problem becomes larger, no? If we keep on taking different curves, then the problem becomes larger.
Yes,
so this is a generalized expression through which you are just coming up to the conclusion. Finally, after simplifying, then you get to the conclusion that if it is a dependent on m, then the limit will not exist. If it is independent, then the limit will exist. But this curve, finding the curve, is really a difficult task.
So ma'am, we have to like take different functions to check whether it is dependent on m or not.
ऐसा करते हैं आशीष।
Yes, that is why I'm saying first try to do
how many functions will be enough? How many functions will
that
be
is why
enough?
I'm saying. That is why I'm saying. First, try to be start with the contradiction that the limit will not exist. Because if you keep in mind that the limit exists, then you may see that there are many curves that you are getting, and just checking with different curve, you will be wasting your time. Just I gave this example: y is equal to mx. Yeah, got it? What I'm saying? Can you understand what I'm saying? It means in order to
can you solve one more question where limit exists? That will be really helpful.
Ma'am, please change the slide, ma'am.
ये रहे तो खेमानी साहब आप मैक्रो मार्केट्स पर देते हुए
ये जो यूपीआई बिजनेस को और बढ़ाने की बात सरकार करती है तो ये स्टॉक्स फोकस में रहेंगे, ये उम्मीद है, लेकिन
पर है उतना निफ्टी और बैंक निफ्टी पर नहीं है।
Okay, can you prove the continuity of this function?
साइड का ही ट्रेड रखना है, जिस तरीके से लीडरशिप बनते हुए दिखे।
Is this function
बिल्कुल बाय करना चाहिए।
The same function which I did. Is this continuous?
लिया जा सकता है। हमें लगता है जिस तरीके के सेटअप एसबीआई के बने, ये स्टॉक में अपसाइड के टारगेट
This example, this was the example.
दिख सकते हैं। 550 की कॉल ऑप्शन 20 रुपए 50।
Is this continuous at the origin?
बाय किया जा सकता है 17 रुपए।
No ma'am. No ma'am.
बाजार के लिए
Why?
Not defined.
No, it will go.
चलिए इस बीच अगर आप देखें
Undefined value.
एग्जैक्टली मैं
It should come a finite value, but it's not coming.
आपसे एक थीम
It will not.
No, that is
Limit does not
अगर
exist.
आप देखें काफी फोकस रहेगा। हालांकि अगर आप देखें
yes. Since the limit is not existing, then it is obvious that it will not be continuous.
महसूस ना हो पेंडेमिक एक्सपेंसेस शायद माइट बी कम हो, लेकिन इस स्पेस पे आपकी राय क्या है?
Ma'am, in case of two variables, you say that we can approach that point from infinite number of ways. Why was this problem not there in case of single variable?
Single variable, you have only one axis. How can you have a domain? See, this is a two dimension. Two dimension means you are having x and y axis. And in one variable, you are having only one domain. So there is no possibility of moving here, no? Because there is only one variable.
जो हम इंटरनेट के या
जब वेरिएबल ही नहीं है, जब वेरिएबल हमारा x ही है, तो हमारे पास पॉसिबिलिटी क्या है? एक ही डायरेक्शन में ना मूव होगा। जब वेरिएबल 2 होगा तो उसमें रीजन बढ़ गया, डोमेन बढ़ गया, एक x आ गया, एक y आ गया, तो हमारे पास रीजन भी ज्यादा मिल गया,
स्पेस में बन गया है मेरे ख्याल से आने वाले समय में।
So ma'am, when we say that if a function is defined by two variables, so what kind of shape it will have? Like in case of one variable, it was a line having a curve. So in case of two variables, what graph we will get?
लगभग समझिए लाख करोड़ का आंकड़ा था और हाथ
you will get a
कम
profile
आया।
if you take the
हम लोगों ने
function.
कुछ रियर साइड एक्शन
You can draw the profile in MATLAB or any software
नीलाचल
also, like
इस्पात निगम लिमिटेड का विनिवेश हुआ और
if
उम्मीद
it is
हम
a
लोग
x
ये
axis.
कर रहे हैं कि एक
So corresponding to each x, you get a y. So we take this as y is equal to fx, isn't it? When we draw the graph, for each x you are getting some y, for this x you are getting some y. So you get this type of graph. Now when you are having a two variable, that means for each x and y you are getting some value of function. Because if we take z is equal to some function of xy, so for each x and y you are getting z. That means you will get a profile something like this. You can just imagine a two-dimensional profile like this, where it is taking the x and y axis, or z value you can take it as in any other direction. In this direction, suppose z value is taking.
कहना चाहूंगा कि जो डाइवर्समेंट में हम लोग ने
Can you get it?
So it will be like a plane.
लेकिन ऐसी उम्मीद जरूर है कि आने वाले उसमें हम तेजी से प्रगति
Not exactly like a plane.
जैन साहब बहुत आभार आपका।
हाँ, you will get a surface.
इस दिन
you will get a surface like
आपने
this.
अपना समय निकाला और इतने सटीक
Where it is taking the x and y axis, x and y value, and there is some z component.
हैं जो वेटेड हैं PSU स्टॉक्स की तरफ, खासकर बैंकिंग थीम की तरफ, वहां पर आप 2022 में बहुत प्रगति देखेंगे। धन्यवाद आपका। चलिए अब यहाँ पर वापस राहुल शर्मा साहब के ऊपर कैमरा केंद्रित करते हैं। साहब ने
let me
explain
this, finish this part. I will give you more example later. Let me just finish this silent part.
देखिए
17,500 का is working on it.
मेरे हिसाब से ये लेवल अगर ब्रीच होता है, आई थिंक 20 पॉइंट ही दूर है हम इससे, तो एक फ्रेश शॉर्ट कवरिंग रैली देखने को मिल सकती है जहां पर 17,780 तक के लेवल, यानी कि तकरीबन 300 पॉइंट की रैली यहां पर और देखने को
वेरिएबल
अंदर, और जो हम 500 पॉइंट की जो बात कर रहे थे वो काफी संभव होगा।
X is tending to A.
I think ये लेवल निकलेगा।
And suppose there is some function value fx, and this is some function value
बाई
fx.
कीजिए, यहाँ पर फ्यूचर से ट्रेड कीजिए, यहाँ पर ऑप्शन में मत जाइए क्योंकि IV डिक्रीज होगी।
So this
अभी 500
you can have like this. The graph can be like this. That this is smaller and this is larger. So this difference is there. Or you can have a value like this. Then this is larger and this is smaller.
फ्यूचर्स में अगर आप नजर डालेंगे तो 17,500
This is at the point x and this is at the point A.
140 करोड़।
So when the function, when the limit is approaching, when x is approaching A, you are having some function value at the point A, and when at x also you have some function value. So if this difference, like when this is approaching means, just imagine this is approaching means this is shifting.
सब्सटेंशियल शॉर्ट कवर करें।
Just imagine yourself, this is shifting. When x is shifting,
याद रखिएगा
when this is shifting towards
लास्ट
A,
एवरेज 20,
that means fx is also shifting towards A.
स्क्रीन पे राजेश पालवे जी,
Can you get it what I'm saying?
स्क्रीन पे मिले हैं सुबह, अगर आप देखें 45 मिनट में। एक बार जरा इंडिया सीमेंट,
हेलो,
मैं एक सीमेंट को पकड़ रहा हूँ। सीमेंट में पिछले 20 मिनट
I'm saying that when x is approaching A,
इंडिया सीमेंट्स देखिए, और
so at this A you have some function value fa,
एक बार इंडिया सीमेंट्स
and at x you have some function value fx.
इस कॉल पे
Okay, just let me take one example. Like suppose y is equal to fx, which is some, this fx is supposed to x. Now when x is, we are at a far place. When x is 1, so what is the value of this?
फोकस में है और हम सभी
When x is half,
कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे।
what is the value of this?
ये सेक्टर में भी
1.
मूवमेंट बनते हुए
When x is 1/4, so this is 1/2.
स्टॉक हमें लगता है
2.
से बिल्कुल
So the function value is changing.
सीमेंट में भी
When x is changing, so x is shifting towards origin means the value of x is changing, and it is approaching it.
मैं उम्मीद करता हूँ आप सब खैरियत से होंगे, जाओगे खुश होंगे आप।
That means just imagine that you are shifting this line. You are just shifting this line towards this point A. And this x is also shifting towards this, towards A. That means x value is moving towards this. So what you can say that when x is approaching towards A, so mod of x minus A. Why mod? Because we can either move towards the negative side or towards the positive side. That is why it is coming mod. Like if we are approaching towards the negative left hand side, then there will be this possibility. If you are moving towards the right hand side, you are taking this value. So this is actually positive x and this side is negative x. So in order to overcome these negative and positive x, this is mod value, actually the length value. In whichever, whether it is positive or negative, it doesn't matter. So length value. And this function value, there is a change in the function value that will be defined as fx minus fa. And this is also coming as mod, because see, just I showed you in this figure, this fx can be larger and fa can be smaller, or we can have fa larger and fx smaller. So see, this is less, this is more. And the length is actually, it doesn't matter whether it is more or less. Length is any difference value. So that is why this is taking as mod. So when we are taking a single variable, we can say that the limit will exist when this difference is very small, that is less than delta, when the function value is very small, that is fx minus fa is less than epsilon. Mod of this is less than epsilon. Did you come across this definition in your limit in 11 and 12? Definition of limit?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
I think you have come across.
Yes.
So when, just imagine that when x is approaching towards a, that means the value of x is changing. That means this difference is very smaller. It is approaching means the difference will, at a certain stage, the difference will be smaller, less than epsilon, but it will not be exactly equal to a. That is why mod of x minus a is less than epsilon. Epsilon is a very small number. It can be 0.01, 0.01, 0.00001, anything. But it is not exactly, otherwise it will be x equal to a. But there is no theory defining that x is equal to a. Okay, so when x is approaching towards a, the function value will obviously change. Just imagine this example which I have given you. So this is the concept. So the limit will exist when mod of x minus a is less, when this difference in the function value, that is fx minus fa is less than epsilon, whenever this condition is less than delta. So there is a question of a, can this delta be equal to epsilon? May or may not?
It may or may not be equal.
Yes, it may or may not, because there may be a point that the difference is coming 0.001, and you see that the difference in the function value is also 0.001. That means it depends on the function, how the function is. So that when x is changing, then the difference of this function value is also changing, and that is why they are generally written as delta. Like the possibility that this epsilon and delta will be the same, that is a rare chance. So that is why this. Now the same concept we can use for a two-dimensional variable. So if we have a two-dimension, that means a triangular region will come, x and y axis. This is x axis, this is y axis. So we have to approach along this point. Suppose x naught and y naught. We can move along this. We can move along this. That means we can move along the positive x as well as negative x axis. So in this case, when we are moving along the positive as well as the negative axis, just like we did over here, so we can say that the difference in the value should be less than epsilon, less than delta. So x mod of x minus x naught should be less than delta. That means when x is approaching closer to a, so this value, when x is approaching closer to a, that means mod of x minus a less than delta, where delta is also a very small number. And y mod, I have just explained, it can be either from the positive or from the negative. So if it is on the positive direction, so this value is larger than x naught. So obviously the value will be, difference will be higher. It will be a positive quantity. Now since if we are moving on the negative side, that means x value is smaller. क्या समझ में आ रहा है ना हम जो बता रहे हैं? Since x value, like suppose this is -2 and this is suppose 0. So the difference -2 and -0 is obviously -2, but length को ही लेते हैं हम लोग. It doesn't matter whether it is a negative or so. That is why it is mod. Now again we have taken x. Now we have to consider y also, because y and x should both move together and should reach this point x naught and y naught. So again we have mod of y minus y naught should be less than delta. Now see, when x and y are approaching towards this point, that means the value of the function at x and y, at this point x and y function will be given to you. It has some value. Like suppose I am giving you this value. So it has some value. And again at the point x naught and y naught, you have some value. So you will have 2x naught y naught, x naught plus y naught. So this difference, just imagine the one dimension. That means when x value was shifting towards a, the difference should also be less. So over here also you will have mod of x comma y minus f of x naught y naught should be less than epsilon. That means when when the function is approaching closer to a, then the difference in the value of the function at the point x and at xy, where xy is any arbitrary point, and the point at which we have to find the limit. If the difference is very small, provided x is also approaching towards a, that is also closer, and the y is also approaching towards y naught, that difference is also closer. So this is actually a form of red triangular coordinate system. That means this is coming closer, this is coming closer, provided the function value, like if I tell you this is this is z axis. Okay, if there is some z axis. So based on this, you will get some profile value. So if that function value is also coming closer, then we say that the limit will exist. So you can write it, the definition.
And can you narrate the definition as well?
Yes, but let me write it. What you have said? A function is said to approach to a limit L as xy approaches x naught and y naught. So it is approaching a limit L. Mathematically, you can write by this limit x comma y tending to x naught y naught. F of x comma y is equal to L. So this is the mathematical expression, which means that xy is approaching x naught and y naught when this function is given and the limit value is L. If for given epsilon greater than 0, there exists delta, which is also greater than 0. These epsilon and delta are very small number, okay, just like I was explaining over here. Such that absolute value of y mod is taken, that also I have explained, because any one can be larger. A mod of f of x comma y minus L is less than epsilon whenever mod of x minus x naught is less than delta, and mod
what
of
you have written what you have written that is what you have written after that is
limit x comma y tending to x naught y naught f of xy is equal to L. Okay, there are different ways of writing the limit of the function of several variables. This time writing it so that if you see in book, you don't get confused. What are these? So you can write it like this also: limit x tending to a, y tending to b, fxy. So this is one way, or you can write it as limit x tending to a, y tending to b, f of x comma y. So there are different ways, or you can write it as limit x comma y tending to a comma b. Meaning is same. Okay. If you see this notation in book, any of these, don't get confused that these are different. They are same with the same thing.
What is written below the limit?
That is limit x comma y tending to x naught y naught f of xy is equal to L if for given epsilon greater than 0. There exists. This is mathematical notation. Okay, try to follow mathematical notation. This is there exists. Opposite A. There exists delta greater than 0 such that mod of f of x comma y minus L will be less than epsilon. When mod of x minus x naught is less than delta and y minus y naught is less than delta. Finished?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this was actually the proof this was actually the theory for existence of limit in Cartesian coordinate system. Okay, when x and y are taken. So this can be also converted into a polar coordinate form. Like we can convert this into a circular region. So when you are converting this into a circular region, and this is the point x naught y naught where we have to check the limit. So that means this radius should come close to each other. This is becoming radius now. However, what we were doing, we were taking this was the rectangular axis, okay? Where you had this x, this was x axis, this was y axis. We were moving over here to the point x naught and y naught. Since this difference, because it was along the line, so this was the difference mod of x minus x naught, and this was also along the line, so it was mod of y minus y naught. Now when we are taking this into a polar form, then that will be transformed into a circle. So we know the equation of the circle. So r square is equal to, what is the formula for the circle, equation of the circle?
X square plus y square equals to r square.
Y minus y naught whole square. So this is the r square is equal to x minus x naught. That means this radius is approaching to the point there. So you can write it in this way, that when you are taking the circular form, so this limit will exist when this condition is the same. When limit extending to this into this will exist when this is less than epsilon, whenever this will be cancelled. Whenever square root, that means radius square should be, this radius should be very small from the point. So x minus x naught whole square plus y minus y naught. This is under square, okay? This is also under square root, is less than delta. Got it? Only the last part will be omitted over here when the Cartesian part will be replaced with a circular equation or circle form. So mod of x, f of x minus L should be less than epsilon whenever square root of this value should be less than delta. That means radius square should be less than delta. That means radius is coming closer means what? What you can imagine? That means circle is moving closer and closer. So you can imagine that that means this difference becomes very small. Then we say that the limit will exist. So using epsilon delta, the problem will not be given to you, but just you can remember the definition, how it is coming. Okay, and the problem will be generally on the path. If we take different paths, then we get if we get a function which is independent of m, then we say that the limit will exist. If it is dependent on m, then we say that the limit will not exist. So we can do more problems in the next class. Any doubt over here, whatever I have taught?
No, ma'am. I guess after solving the question, we might able to get it.
Yes, okay. Generally, the problem will be there to check whether the limit will not exist, because to check whether the limit exists, it is really a difficult task. Because in one variable, it is fine. In two variables, there are infinite number of ways in which we can move. Okay, we will meet in the next class. 1 minute is left. I think it is no use. We can move on. So limit, anyone having any doubt? What is exactly a limit and what is continuity?
No.
Okay. Okay, fine. We will meet in the next class.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
थैंक यू मैम।
arigato